Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kira Provenzano. Welcome to Tea Time with the MGA, the Metropolitan Golf Association. Today is our final webinar of a new webinar series that we have created geared towards women, an initiative of the MGA's Women's Advisory Council. The main mission of the Women's Advisory Council is to support women in golf in the Met area, specifically pertaining to education and development, as well as strengthening our connection with our female members and overall female participation within our network of clubs. Helping us produce this webinar series has been Gia Levski, LPGA professional and founder of Golf Experiences with Her. Gia has spent over 25 years in the golf industry, nationally recognized as a top professional golf instructor. She started Golf Experiences for Her as a way to strengthen relationships, build comfort, leaving women feeling energized, enriched, and confident in their golf game. So without further ado, Gia.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Kira. Good afternoon and hello. I hope your Monday is going well so far. And, a big thank you for joining us for our final Tea Time with the MGA for 2021. Now, I hope this has been as much fun for you as it has been for me. I've really enjoyed myself. And today is part 2 with Dr. Alison Curdt. We're going to pick up where we left off and learn some more savvy things about performing on course. In part 1, we focused on managing emotions and handling performance anxiety. And today we're going to dig a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about imagery, some goal setting, and how to focus and have better concentration on the greens. And I think we can all use a little bit more of that. But before we begin, I'd like to introduce our awesome guest and educator one more time. Dr. Alison Curdt is a dual PGA Master and LPGA Master Professional teaching in LA. She's a sports psychologist, and she helps golfers perform their best mentally and physically. She's recognized as a top young teacher by Golf Digest and a top teacher to watch by Golf Magazine. Those lists are hard to get on, by the way, so she's something special. Dr. Curdt has won numerous teaching awards, including the 2020 LPGA Western Section Golf Professional of the Year, 2019 SoCal PGA Professional of the Year, the 2018 SC PGA Club Fitter of the Year. She's a 4-time LPGA Western Section Teacher of the Year, 2016 SC PGA Teacher of the Year. Oh my gosh, Alison. And 2019 LPGA TNCP National Teacher of the Year. She was selected as an LPGA Top 50 Teacher in 2017 and 2019. Those are coming up again, so I'm sure she'll be on that list as well. And she was inducted in the SoCal PGA Teaching Hall of Fame already, and you are young, I know that. She just completed her term as Vice President of the LPGA Professionals. She was awesome and currently serves as the Secretary of the SoCal PGA Board of Directors. You are good. Okay, so just like our last webinar, we would love for you to jot down some couple questions that might pop up during the presentation. We're gonna hold those questions to the end of the talk. And I don't know about you, but I'm ready to learn, so I hope you guys are too. Are you ready, Al?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Good to see you, Gia. Welcome, everyone. It's morning here in Los Angeles, California, so I hope you're enjoying your day. Again, with the questions, you'll notice over on the right-hand side a little panel that has an arrow pointing to questions. If you click on that, you can go ahead and type those questions in as you see fit, and then we will get to them by the end of this morning. Well, morning for me, afternoon for you. If you missed the first session of our mental coaching program, there was a recording that was sent out, so you can always get that from MGA, and there's some really great content in there about how to manage your emotions and how to regulate performance anxiety. But now we're going to move in to some other sports psychology fundamentals, goal setting, focusing, and concentration, and there's going to be some skills in there such as using imagery that will be really helpful for you to improve your performance. So oftentimes I have a lot of students that come to me that feel like their technical components are in a good space, but they're just not performing the way that they expect or envision. And that's when we can merge into improving their mental performance to help bridge everything together. So Gia did a wonderful introduction of all the cool things that I've had a blessed opportunity to experience. But to give you just a super brief background again for some of the new people on today's program, I do have a background in clinical psychology. I have my doctorate in clinical psychology with an emphasis in sports psychology, but I am licensed in the state of California as a marriage and family therapist and a licensed clinical professional counselor. And part of that initiative to get those degrees was working with my students on the lesson tee and noticing all of the stuff that they brought with them to the lesson. It was less about fixing their slice and more about managing what was happening in their personal life that impacted their golf. So I wanted to speak not only to the technical pieces of the students that I was working with at all levels, beginners, intermediates, professionals, but I wanted to have a better skill set and toolbox to help my students from a mental perspective, and whether that was through handling emotions, managing the balance of their life so that they could perform their best, just thinking better on the golf course. And so that's where I am today, where I basically say I teach by day. When the sun is out, I'm on the golf course helping students from a technical and a performance aspect. And then at nighttime, I have a private practice where I work with individuals, couples, children on how to play their best golf, how to be their best performer, whether that's in work or in sport or in life, and ultimately just be the best version of yourself. Today's focus is going to start off with goal setting. If we don't have goals, we don't have a roadmap to follow. Using goals in your practice, goals on the golf course, and looking at goals in your entire golf journey is going to be instrumental in achieving your best performance. And then I'm going to speak a little bit on how motivation relates to goal setting, how those two intersect with one another. And then in the second half, we'll talk a bit about focus and concentration. And we as a society are so tasked with multiple sources of information and systems going on around us that having improved focus, having improved concentration is great for golfers and humans of all ages. We are just in a really taxed society with so much information going on, our phone going off, emails popping on, scrolls along news, and then we want to get to the golf course and pretend that we're all Buddha and Zen, and it just doesn't happen like that. It's a skill that we have to improve upon and build upon, and I'll teach you some ways for us to do that. Ultimately, from our first session to today's session, we're going to learn how to transfer that to the golf course. How do we transfer what we practice on the range and in our practice facilities and bring that to the golf course? So let's get started. If you don't have goals, as I mentioned, you don't have a roadmap to follow. If you think about getting in your car in the morning, you typically have the route that you're going to take to get to your destination. That would be considered a goal. I'm going to take these particular streets to get to my final destination, and it will take me this amount of time, and I need to leave my home at this time. Well, when you're looking at your golf career and your golf journey, we'd like to be able to set daily goals, monthly goals, 90-day, yearly. What would you like to achieve in 5 years? What would you like to achieve in 10 years? And when you take a look at how to set goals, it's not just like, oh, I want to break 90, or I'd like to break 100 for the first time. There are some components about goal setting that can be really, really helpful to help you follow that roadmap. And so we call that SMARTS goals. Now you might have heard of SMART goals. This is a little bit of twist for sports psychology, SMARTS goals. When you set a goal, it needs to be specific. So a lot of times I'll have players come to the lesson tee and they say, I want to get better. Not specific enough. What can we do to get better? What does better look like to you? So when you think about setting your goals, like if I want to lose weight, I'd like to be a faster runner, I'd like to hit the golf ball farther. Be specific. How fast? How far? At what time frame? So being super specific in that goal. Then we have to have some element of measuring that goal. So the score or a handicap can oftentimes be an easy way to measure progress, but you might also measure the distance of your shots. You might measure how well you keep the golf ball in the fairway versus hitting it in the rough. You could make it very simple and measure how many golf balls you lose in a round. So for players that shoot 90s and above, you might say, I'd like to not lose more than 2 golf balls today. You can kind of remember when you first started out and you might have lost 9 or 10 golf balls in a round. And so if you're only losing 1 or 2 a round, then that's a measurable goal. You've improved that ball striking enough to stay on the golf course. Then we look at, is it action oriented? Are there actual steps that you can take to accomplish this particular goal that you're setting for yourself? Can you set up a process to achieve this? Is it realistic for you in your world how your body performs with your health, with your physical stature? If you're looking to hit a drive 250 yards, but your club head speed is around 50 miles an hour, that may not be realistic at this time. But maybe over the course of 3 years with a physical fitness program, with speed training, with some lessons from Gia, someone in your area, that may be a realistic goal to be able to hit it 250 yards at some point. But seeing if it's realistic for how your body performs and how your life is. If you're only practicing 20 minutes once a week, that may not be realistic. And lastly is or second to last, is the goal timely? Do you have a time frame for how you'd like to achieve this? When you look at research about New Year's resolutions, the statistics is most people are not accomplishing their New Year's resolutions by Valentine's Day. So that's 6 weeks from the first, usually 6 weeks from the first of the year, that people have already given up their New Year's resolution, because most of the time they set them so vague, they don't have a time frame, they're not checking in on that New Year's resolution to even accomplish it. So by the time Valentine's Day comes around, they're off to something else. So when we look at timely, I'd like to hit my golf ball 250 yards with a driver within 12 months. I'd like to break 100 for the first time within the next 90 days, because maybe you're shooting around 110, 105. So having a time frame within that goal. And then the part that is maybe something you haven't heard before that is really important in terms of sports psychology is that it's self-determined, that you are picking it for you. Someone else isn't applying that goal to your world, but you're saying, I want to achieve this, so it's self-determined. So when you set a goal, I'm going to come back to that slide in a minute. When you set a goal and you include all of those components, now you have a beautiful roadmap to be able to follow. So as I mentioned earlier, I'll have students say, I'm here today because I want to play better. Well, what does that really look like? Does that mean you want to score better? The quality of the shots that you hit would like to be improved? You want your handicap to score lower? Playing better means that you're going to have more fun. So that would be the specific piece. The measurable piece, how do you track it? Are you going to keep your scorecards and have an Excel sheet with the 90 days of rounds that you're playing? Are you going to look at your handicap and the progression of it over time? That's the measurable piece. The attainable piece, can you actually attain this with your lifestyle, with access to your golf course, access to coaching? Is it realistic? Are your skills that you currently have, is that going to be congruent with the goal that you're searching for? If you'd like to be an LPGA senior tour player, can you do that with the skills that you have? If you'd like to play in your club's club championship and feel like you can be in the first 3 flights, are your skills, or do you have the ability to attain those skills within your time frame? Is that going to help you reach your goal? The realistic component, the timely component, at what time would you like to reach this goal? And then of course, self-determined. Now, when we look at the different types of goals that we might set, most of the players I work with focus on outcome goals. Outcome goals are the result or the outcome of your round, your finish in a tournament, the end score, where you place in your club championship, how your scramble team finishes. It's all related to the outcome. But this is only partially controlled by you as the golfer, because there's so many other factors that are out of your control. For example, you can't control the field, which means you have no power over how the rest of the players compete. So outcome goals are nice to have kind of in the distance and to have a frame of reference about where you'd like to go, but performance and process goals, that's your bread and butter. That's where you want to stay with. Your performance goals would be looking at specific standards of your performance. For example, how many fairways you hit today compared to how many fairways you hit on January 1st. How many up and downs or greens in regulation are you making by the time December comes around compared to January? So you can look at your performance, but you're doing it in relation to yourself. And process, the most important in my opinion for goal setting, is what are your actions that you can control. So playing in a tournament, I can control my pre-shot routine, my mentality, regulating my emotions. I can have process goals that will then influence my outcome. But when I focus on my process, I play my best. When I focus on the outcome, I want to finish first, we tend to play our worst, and research will support that. So focus on your process goals and your performance goals, and just sort of loosely have those outcome goals. Now, when we look at our goal setting styles, individuals can become performance oriented or success oriented. Success oriented is where we tend to get hurt the most, because that's where we compare ourselves to others. Well, Susie broke 90 for the first time and I hit it farther than Susie. And so then all of a sudden we're using other people's comparisons, and it can cause us, number one, to set less challenging goals because we're trying to beat somebody else, or we set goals that are too low for us because we know that we can achieve them and that makes us feel good. Success-oriented goals are less powerful than performance-oriented goals. And the performance-oriented goals are where you're focusing on comparing you to yourself. So you have your career low of 95 and you'd like to try to beat 95, you're comparing you to you. And this is so much more important because it's concerned less with the results and more on your improvements that are being made, your self-improvements. And then I call this goal layering. So when you think about what you'd really like to achieve in your golf game, let's say you've never competed in a scramble tournament before, and you'd like to try to do that when the spring comes around, and you'd like to use this winter time to prepare for that scramble tournament. So that would be the top of the goal, or you think about layers of an onion and you peel away layers of an onion. So as we layer our goals, what are you going to need to compete in a scramble tournament? Well, we're probably going to need proper practice, and we're going to need some competency in our skills. So in our competency of skills, what are some of the skills that you'll need? Well, you probably need to understand the format of a scramble, which a lot of players often use the term best ball, but that's actually a completely different type of tournament. A scramble is when we're hitting shots, we all pick the best shot as a group, we all hit from there, we pick the best shot, we all hit from there until the ball is holed. So you need to understand the format of the scramble. We might need to improve our driving accuracy. We might look at our approach shots into the green. We might look at our putting. So you can evaluate in that competency of skills, what are you going to need in order to compete in that scramble tournament? We go over to proper practice. How might you need to properly practice? Perhaps you practice a scramble on the golf course. Perhaps you work on your emotional regulation skills from a couple of weeks ago to relieve pre-performance anxiety. You might visualize performance to prepare. So seeing yourself perform in the moment, using some mindfulness, using some meditation. And you might also look at what your nutrition and your fitness is in order to compete in an 18-hole scramble event. So we call that goal layering. When you make your goals visible in your world, such as like in your garage, on your refrigerator, maybe it's on your phone back screen, and you're constantly faced with seeing these goals, it makes them more achievable because you're being reminded of what you're working towards. One of the reasons why New Year's resolutions don't really work for a lot of people is they don't write them down, they don't use the SMARTS method, and then they're not reminded or accountable for what they'd like to achieve. When I pull into my garage, I have a vision board where I know that my car needs to line up with that vision board so that my car is completely in the garage. And on that vision board, I have pictures of things that I'd like to achieve in the next 10 years. And then when I walk into my bathroom, on my mirror, I have with a dry erase marker the top 3 things that I'm going to work on for that month. And if there's something that I want to work on in a specific week, I might use a Post-it note and put it on my refrigerator. So every time I open up the refrigerator, oh yeah, I'm going to make sure I take 50 putts every day. I'm going to go outside and take those 50 putts. So make those goals visible. And through that, we're writing our goals down. We're using our own words. You might write some notes in your phone. You might have a goal journal. This is my goal journal that I bring with me everywhere. So it just has everything that I do on a daily basis to make myself better. And then what did I do in that day to help me just get a little bit better? And then over the course of the year, I'll be able to reflect on, here's the steps that I took to make myself a better human, a better golfer, a better person, a better teacher. And then lastly, using an imagery schedule. So if you plan out the times that you're going to think about your goal, maybe it's the 10 minutes before you go to bed, or it's when you're brushing your teeth in the morning. If you imagine and see yourself achieving your goals, you're running the neural circuitry in your brain of actually achieving those goals. Imagining yourself crossing a finish line, imagining yourself holding the trophy up at the end of a tournament, imagining yourself going to practice. This is all helpful in achieving those goals. This would be an example of a worksheet that you could create. What are you looking to achieve? What are the steps that you're going to take? At what time do you need to complete it by? And then you have some accountability with the result. When you set goals, it keeps you motivated. You know what you're working towards. And that motivation is broken down into intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is when we really have a desire to learn and acquire new skills. I'm a learner by nature. I love learning. That's intrinsically motivated. No one told me to go to grad school or master's school and to earn my doctorate. Those are things that were intrinsically motivating to me. There's a need to feel competent. You want to have a desire to know how to hit your driver straight. You want to have a desire on how to use a green reading skill to make sure that you can make more putts. And it's self-determined. Intrinsic motivation is the most powerful form of motivation when you're looking to achieve your goals. So we often say when I work with players that have addiction, whether it's alcohol, food, or smoking, when a player really wants to stop doing something, they will stop doing it because it's intrinsically motivated. When it's extrinsically motivated and somebody is trying to persuade them from the outside, sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. So perhaps you experience someone in your world, a spouse, saying, I'd love for you to play golf so that you can come join me. And that might be the external motivation, is because you're trying to make the other person happy. You're not going to have as good a performance as if you say, I really love golf and I want to learn golf for me. And if I get to go play golf with my spouse, then that's awesome, but I'm doing this for me. So extrinsic motivation are helpful, but they are discouraging because they don't support great performance. And there may be times that you have this feeling of burnout. Perhaps you're playing too much golf or you're practicing and you're not getting better. Well, the way that you can help prevent burnout is by making sure that your practice is motivating, so that you have 70% success rate, but a little bit of failure, 30% failure. We can't be successful all the time. That gets boring. We have to have a little bit of failure to know, oh, I could do better the next time. Don't do the same things over and over. Don't reset the same goals, change the goals, make them a little bit more challenging. Make your practice a little bit different every time you go to the range. Play with different people, play at different times. Have a clear path to know where you're going. This will help prevent that burnout. And then constantly assess, benchmark, and reassess. We need to know when to rest. We need to know when we're plateauing and when we need to make things more challenging, or when we just need to step back away, take a break for a few weeks, and come back to the game. So now that we know how to set goals and how that helps with our roadmaps and our motivation, we're going to shift into concentration quickly, where when you are on the golf course, you might have your phone on, someone might be playing the radio, you might be thinking about what you're planning for dinner or what your next appointment is. And all of that time, you're also trying to make this complex movement of hit a golf ball. As golfers, we are faced with so many different distractions in the moment that it can certainly be hard for us to concentrate. Crowds, spectators, competitors, noise, playing partners, the mower cutting across the fairway, out of bounds waters, and our own experience of emotion can be distracting. So the solution to this is to understand the concept of mindfulness, which is the redirection of attention and doing one thing and one time and knowing that you're doing it. Which means that if you're eating dinner tonight, you're only eating dinner, you know that you're eating dinner and there's nothing else going on, like reading the news or watching TV, that you're savoring the moment, enjoying all the tastes of the food, feeling the texture of the food, the smell of the food, you're actually enjoying a meal. What if you did that when you were over a putt? You feel the grip in your hand. You smell the air around you. You notice the sun on your face. You feel the subtleties in the green and the topography of the grass. And you're present in the moment hitting that 3-foot putt, rather than thinking about your playing partner who just slammed their club in their bag or rattling or someone's phone went off, or even the thoughts going on in your mind. There's a tool that I use with my students called Focus Band, which helps me understand whether they're in a state that is performance productive or whether they're in a state that is very thinking and analytical. And most research supports, for most people, this isn't an umbrella for everybody, that when we are in a non-thinking state, so when we're using more of the right half of our brain, which tends to be like creativity, visual components, we tend to perform really well. When we're using the left side of our brain, standing over the golf ball, we tend to not do so well. When you're thinking about, oh, I'm supposed to turn here, keep my eyes looking at the ball, have my hands up here and now swing through and rotate my hips. When you're operating with that way and there's a lot of thoughts going on in your mind, it disrupts the flow of your muscles and it disrupts the messages your brain is trying to send to your muscles to make this golf swing. And this is a feedback device that I use with my players to see which hemisphere of the brain that they're using and how focused they are. Now you'll see in this little avatar this triangle coming out of the eyes. When your eyes are very focused on one particular spot, we call that a quiet eye. That means there's not a lot of thinking going on and you're really engaged in the moment. That's why you might see some players stand behind their golf ball and just take a brief moment to look at their target down the fairway. That's a way to help organize all of your thoughts and get really, really externally focused on a target rather than internally focused on, oh my gosh, there's a bunker right, there's water left, I've been topping the ball the past 4 holes. That gets you into thinking mode on the left side of your brain. We want to be more into imagery and visualization on the right side of our brain. Standing behind the ball, seeing the shot go exactly how you'd like it to go. No thoughts at all, just experiencing and feeling the moment. So this is a nice neurofeedback tool that can be used to help you train what it feels like to be in one side of your brain over the other. And that's very general because we never are just in one side of our brain, but using more energy from that side of our brain. Now, when we are trying to transfer this information to the golf course, so maybe you've been practicing on the range and you're that type of player that says, I hit it great on the range, and then I go to the golf course and it's completely different. Well, the reason being is when you're on the range, you get multiple tries. It's a controlled environment. It's static, meaning that the grass is flat and there's not a lot of variability. You can just pull another golf ball over and hit, and we tend to go to one target. Oftentimes, we might not even be super focused on any technical components because we're just warming up our body. But then we go to the golf course and all of a sudden the lie changes. You get one try to hit your 6 hybrid and that's it. Then all of a sudden the wind picks up. And now you don't hit that 6 hybrid for another 8 minutes because you're finished using it for that hole, and now you're not going to use it until you get to the next hole. And each shot has a new alignment. So we've got static on the range and we've got variability on the golf course. And on the golf course, now all of a sudden we're trying to pull the technical components of here's what I learned in my lesson and make sure I maintain my spine angle and rotate my hips and all of this component. That's why it doesn't work on the golf course, because we're in 2 completely different mental states. We might be super relaxed on the range and really chilled, and then we go to the golf course and all of a sudden it's like, I have to do these certain things. So what's a nice way to bridge that range to golf course when we're looking at how to focus and how to concentrate is you might look at changing targets more constantly. So hit a 7-iron to the blue flag on the right, hit a driver to the green flag far left, hit your 6 hybrid to the white flag to the right. So constantly changing clubs, constantly changing targets. That resembles the golf course. If you're using a practice session, maybe you're going to practice for 30 minutes, maybe you hit a couple of iron shots and then take 4 to 5 putts. Then come back to the range and hit some pitch shots and then go do some greenside chips. So we model the timing between shots. We're typically never hitting 2 drivers in a row unless you hit that driver out of bounds. So hit one drive on the range, go do something else and come back. We can also practice our pre-shot routine. I'll go into that more in just a moment. Using our pre-shot routine to help us get focused, to help us get really centered on an external target, rather than looking at our internal process of the emotions that we're feeling, the thoughts that we're having, the distractions that we're balancing. And then an easy one is play the golf course from memory on the range. I know before I'm preparing for a tournament, I'll have my yardage book in my hand and I'll go through each and every shot that I think that I'm going to hit on the course, putting my yardage book back in my pocket, going through my routine, and playing the course from the range. When you're practicing, again, that 70-30% fail rate, 70% success, 30% fail, is really helpful when you bridge in your goal setting, your focus, and your concentration. We want to have a little bit of success, but we want to make sure we have a little bit of failure. And so when you are working on a particular drill, drills are meant to help you build repetition in your motor patterns, but also to create some sort of competition to where you can feel some success, but also some challenge. And so you can attain success in ladder increments. The first thing that I think of is the putting drill, which is a ladder. You put a ball at 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, and you go onward, 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 and you start putting from the closest and you go to the farthest. And when you miss a putt, then you start all over and you try to see how far back you can get away from the hole and still make those putts. That would be attaining success in a ladder increment. Perhaps you're working from a set of tees that are really short, and then you're starting to move back to a farther set of tees and a farther set of tees. You might look at trying to use different golf clubs that you're not comfortable with, and you're trying to attain success with them. So maybe you never use your 5-wood, but you'd really like to use it because it goes pretty far when you hit it well. You can start to put that into play slowly and with success and build up some success with that. Recreating on the range some pressure situations. So imagining having to hit a straight drive because you're on the 18th hole and it's really going to help your scramble team if you hit this drive. Imagine what that would be like to have a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of adrenaline, and then be able to need to hit that shot. And experiencing on-course adversity. So when you're on the range, think about the tough shots you might have, like having to pitch out from under a tree, or maybe you can curve the golf ball around some obstacles. You know how to hit a cut, you know how to hit a draw. Maybe you need to hit a ball really high. You can, on the range, practice those difficult shots that you might experience when you have some adversity on the golf course. I mentioned that pre-shot routine. If you don't have a pre-shot routine already, this would be a nice template to follow. Pia Nilsson and Lynn Marriott from Vision 54 use the term think box and play box. And when we go back to our focus and concentration, we would like to have a space in our routine that helps us think, because we do need to gather the distance to the target. We need to know what club we're going to hit, assess the wind, the lie, what kind of flight of the golf ball you'd like. This is all the time that's appropriate to think. Then we need to switch into our play box. So you might take a deep breath, visualize the shot and the shape of the shot. You might use like a TrackMan yellow line or Shot Tracer blue line, exactly how you'd like to see the ball fly. And then as you walk into the actual space where you're going to set up, we're going to call this the play box. That's where we tend to use more of the right half of our brain, where you're literally just putting the club down, putting your hands on the club, looking at your target, back to the ball, and hitting your shot. So it's okay to have a space to think, but we want to make sure that it's a clear separator from where we're actually playing. And this would be an example of a pre-shot routine. Building that for yourself is going to be extremely important for having a nice place to understand when it's time to focus, when it's time to switch from chatting with your group mates to now have to spend time focusing and hitting my golf ball. So as we look at what we've gleaned from today's topic, we need to have a great roadmap to follow when it comes to setting our goals. What do you want to accomplish in your golf game? What does that look like? If you were to play your best golf, what would that look like? And what are the steps that you could take over a specific period of time to accomplish your goals? Write them down, put them all over your world so that you stay motivated. and make sure that they're self-determined so that you're the one that wants to go to the range, not somebody dragging you to the range. And once we see that we have our goals set and we have a good motivating factor to get us to go practice, to get us to go play our best, now we need to have some skills to be able to focus in the moment and concentrate. We might use our meditation or mindfulness practice, doing one thing at one time and knowing that we're doing it. We might make sure that we practice with distractions to help us focus even more. And certainly setting up some adverse experiences so that when it happens on the course, we're better able to handle it. And then using our tools from knowing how to handle our emotions and our anxiety now puts us in the ultimate performance state. So thank you so much for taking the time to improve your game today, understanding how to set goals and improving focus and concentration just a bit. This is my contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to visit one of my two websites. Alison Curdt Golf is more focused on the technical components. Curdt Performance Therapy is more focused on the mental components. You can reach out to me on social media or follow me on any handles. My YouTube channel does have continued presentations on other sports psychology topics that you're welcome to watch. And you'll be getting a recording from today of today's topic as well. As I mentioned earlier, I do work with golfers from all over the globe on their mental performance. So we can set up sessions if you have some specific things that you'd like to work on, and we can do that virtually since we're on different coasts. So at this time, if there's any questions, I'd love to answer anything specific.
That's so good. There's so many good takeaways. I'm writing things down and I'm like, so many good takeaways. I have a question, but I'm looking right now. Ken Nixon asks, how should one treat warming up on the range versus practicing on the range?
Awesome question. So a warm up on the range is really getting your muscles cued in, warmed up, bringing blood to the certain areas of your body that you need without focusing on the shape of your shot or how you're hitting it. You might be doing stretches, you might be doing full swings, you might be doing some pitching motions with a heavy golf club. So when you go in with the intention that I'm just using these motions to warm up my body, and I'm not assessing how today's round is going to go based on the quality of the strike, that is a pure warm-up. A practice is when you have a specific intention or a goal in mind of improving a technical skill. So perhaps you're working on more rotation through impact. You're focused on that, you're mindful of that, you have feedback with a mirror, a coach, a camera, you're doing particular drills. That is training, that is practice. And I tend to use training a little bit more with my students because practice is like this awful word. I don't want to go practice, I'll go train though. So when you're warming up before a round playing with your friends, you're purely getting your body into the sequence, into the rhythm of the day. We're not practicing, we're not working on technical pieces right before we head off. We're just calibrating for the day.
That's great. How long, and we have a couple other questions, how long would you say a great just warm up, free flowing, not thinking about what you're seeing? How long would that be? A few minutes, 5 minutes?
Gosh, it's a little different for everybody. For me, a warm up for competition is an hour and 15 minutes because I like to warm up all facets of my game, chipping, pitching, bunkers, putting, and I have a certain protocol of how many balls that I hit and what I follow. But I would say for the average club player, golfer out there, at minimum 30 minutes, because you need time to get your bag on the cart, you need time to get your sunscreen going, maybe get your hydration and your nutrition. So we need time to get settled into our golf roll. And then when you go to the range, I would recommend warming up with a short club. So wedge through 9-iron, just pick one. Then a mid club, so like 7-6 or a 5, something there. And then move into your driver so that we've got a short, a middle, and a long club. And just hit a few shots, which each of those after you've stretched out and you're ready to go from the full swing perspective. But always make sure you walk over to the green and test out the speeds of the green. So I would say 30 minutes would be at minimum a nice way to get yourself putting the golfer hat on and focused in the moment to play.
Yeah, it allows you to breathe a little bit. I've always, for so many years, we've seen these guys running and ladies running right from the cart to, car to the cart to the tee, and there's no
Right.
time to breathe and like kind of pull it together. So that's great.
Yeah.
Dr. Curdt, we have another question. Do you have any tips for helping us tune out noisy players nearby?
Yes, it is a masterful skill to have. And you all have it right now. You just don't know that you have it. For example, when you're watching TV and you're really in the moment and someone's calling your name and you don't hear them 3 or 4 times until they're like, Allison, and you're like, oh, what? That is an example of me being engaged and focused in the moment. It just happens to be on TV. So what if you were to do that, take that skill into the golf course? When you have these noisy people talking, you have to be able to take your attention and focus on your process. Look at the golf ball, look at your target. When you focus on particular pieces, those voices will be muted. They won't be as loud. And eventually you'll get to the point where it's like you're watching TV and you don't hear anyone calling your name because you're so in the moment. And the way to train that would be with some meditation practice, because meditation practice, even if it's for 2, 3, or 4 minutes, helps you focus on one single solitary thing. And when you do have some external stuff come in, it helps you train not to pay attention to it. The reason why those voices are loud now is because your attention is going to those voices rather than where you want to direct your attention to. There's an app that I'll recommend called Insight Timer. It's a free app and it's basically like a portal of all of these meditations. And you can filter, I think I'm going to meditate for 2 minutes. That's cool. Type in 2 minutes and here'll be some recordings of 2-minute meditations. You don't have to sit there for 30 minutes with your fingers and legs crossed. I recommend my athletes work from 2 to 7 minutes just so that they can get these small bursts of focus when they need it on command.
Love it. One more question I think we're gonna knock out here. If you need to back away, how does one regroup quickly to remain mindful and set within your pre-shot routine? You have to start completely over.
Great question, and awesome that you know that you have the right to back away. If you feel disrupted or dysregulated, don't try to pull off the shot. Step away and start over. When I start over, I go all the way back to the beginning of my pre-shot routine from the practice move. I already have my data collected. I know what shot I need to hit, unless all of a sudden there's a shift in the wind and I need to change a club. But I just take 3 steps back. I go into my practice swing again. I stand behind the ball. And that's when I go into the imagery of the shot, the deep breath, and then I start my walk back in. So figure out for you in your pre-shot routine, which I would recommend everybody writing out the steps of your pre-shot routine. It's very helpful to see which parts you can pull out, which parts you need to add in. Find what would be a good starting place for you if you need to step off the ball. And typically it's going to be at a place where you have a deep breath, a component of imagery, seeing the shot, running the shot through your mind, and then maybe just a little confident practice swing to get you back into the flow.
Good stuff. I wish we could keep going. I can't. It's really great. It's super informational. It's so smart and so applicable, right? Like, you really just have to think about it and work through some of the steps. And I am going to do a vision board with my kids tonight and myself. I think that made me realize that I haven't done one in a very long time. And I think it's really important to set some goals, which I haven't done recently. So I think that's great. So thank you. Okay, so I say that's it right now, but I would love for you to all be on the lookout for a full recap email from Kira with both of the recordings and a newsletter that I'm currently working on for you. You will definitely get all of Dr. Curt's information. You can reach out to her, contact her if she can help you in any way. We so appreciate you joining us. I hope all of you have been able to take away something from our time together, and we'd love to hear feedback, and I'd love to hear that your golf games are thriving and that you are having a great time on the course. So thank you very much. Thank you again, Dr. Curdt. Super appreciative, and take care, everyone.